Those of you familiar with my work will recognize my fairly common remark that golf is not symmetrical. One that I also refer to with some frequency is something that isn't commonly discussed in golf, which is the involvement of the shoulders, and particularly the fact that they're free floating elements in the golf swing, which are in that case a variable which needs some attention. And they're independent of each other. So they're only attached to the clavicle and therefore to the sternum. And everything else can rotate into new and diverse and perhaps unhelpful locations and attitudes and potential movement. So a little chat about that, I think, is worthwhile. So the primary example of my assertion that golf is not symmetrical is brought up usually in the context of how to stand. It's very tempting that we stand in a symmetrical way, which for a tetrapod, a four-legged animal running, which we were, is to have both the elbows and legs pointing in the same direction, just like mirror images of each other. And of course, the spine vertical and the shoulders level. Now, golf, we apply force quite differently in the downswing from the backswing, and each hand does a different job. And as a consequence, we need to set them up differently. And I call it bias, where I have people rotate the left elbow to look out toward the target, a little different from obviously the very famous perspective in Ben Hogan's literature, where he advocated having the elbows looking at each respective hip. Out of great respect for him, I still say that it's just not what modern champions do. So the left elbow is looking out, the shoulder is higher, of course, as a consequence. This one's bent and lower, and the elbow looking down. And you'll see a lot of younger champions. I think of Ricky Fowler in his really particularly good year a couple of years ago, and of course Justin Thomas, where they do these rather long, slow, elaborate waggles. Now, I always talk about the waggle as a windshield wiper blade cleaning a small piece of windshield. They do a similar but bigger version where they stop here and look at something. Now, I don't claim to mind read what they're entirely looking at, although I do know that they're checking that the shaft is still looking at the middle somewhat. But and of course the attitude of the club. But I think that one of the almost perhaps greater benefits is not particularly focused on very often, which is that it establishes the right interface between particularly the left shoulder and the body and the arm and the club, and as a consequence the shape and potential of the swing. So when they do this waggle, they're actually setting the left shoulder against the chest. Ben Hogan advocated that the upper arm be attached to the chest. And while they're checking the other things, I think they've established something of enormous value. Now, that's the left shoulder. The right shoulder is completely different, asymmetrical. If you've ever lost at arm wrestling, I did that a lot, my brother's much bigger than me, it's not a pleasant feeling, but that's actually the shape of the right shoulder and arm complex as you apply force on the downswing. Famously, a very famous Mo Norman from Canada advocated that the elbow be violently underneath the left one as it came through the downswing, and Ben Hogan made similar remarks. So this losing at arm wrestling with the right shoulder and arm complex is the shape that it is best shaped to accomplish during the downswing particularly. So whatever they may have the right shoulder doing here, they're going to be in this position on the way down. And so I recommend this. If you stand and hold the club with your left hand and with the elbow biased outwards, and then reach over here as far as you can reach, that sort of gives you a good idea of how this portion of your body should be set. Then attach the other hand and point the elbow down at the ground and lower the shoulder. That's the shape that we want to be available as we pull down through the ball. And I think that you'll find if you then adopt that shape at address, there are fewer variables, and it's always valuable to eliminate variables in your golf swing.